The metallic clang of the submarine's hatch echoed through the ship as the crew of the Daring Horizon prepared for their historic expedition. The ocean spread out before them, a boundless, shimmering expanse of blue, masking the secrets it held beneath. Captain Meredith Kane surveyed her team with an air of confidence, though her heart beat with trepidation. The mission was ambitious. Map an uncharted trench rumored to plunge deeper than the Mariana. The team was small but experienced. Dr. Elias March, a marine biologist whose obsession with the abyss bordered on fanaticism, scribbled notes furiously. Engineer Jackson Price ran diagnostics on the submarine systems. His hands steady but his jaw clenched. Communications officer Kira Solis adjusted her headset, her youthful enthusiasm masking a deeper unease. And then there was Malik Hayes, the stoic diver who spoke little but whose presence anchored the group. The trench, ominously nicknamed the Whispering Abyss by local fishermen, loomed on their sonar like a void, a chasm so black it seemed to swallow light itself. Meredith couldn't shake the unease that had settled over her since the mission's conception. The whispers of the fishermen's tales lingered in her mind, voices in the deep, driving men mad. As the submarine descended, the light from the surface faded, replaced by the eerie glow of bioluminescent creatures. Silence enveloped the crew, broken only by the hum of the engine and the occasional creak of the vessel. Meredith kept her eyes on the monitors, her fingers tight on the controls. They were approaching depths no human had ever dared to explore. "We're crossing 10,000 meters, Jackson announced, his voice strained. The tension in the cabin was palpable. All systems stable. "Good," Meredith replied, though her voice lacked conviction. She glanced at Elias, who was staring intently at the viewport, his breath fogging the glass. "Anything unusual?" Elias shook his head. "Not yet. Just waiting." Waiting for what? Meredith thought but didn't ask. Her gut told her they were venturing into something far beyond science. As the trench's maw came into view on the monitors, a low vibration resonated through the submarine, almost imperceptible. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "Did anyone else feel that?" Kira asked, her voice quivering. "Probably just a current," Jackson muttered, though his fingers hovered over the controls with a newfound urgency. The submarine's lights pierced the darkness, illuminating the jagged edges of the trench. It was vast, a gaping wound in the ocean floor. Elias leaned closer to the viewport, his face pale. "This is it. This is what we've been searching for." But as they descended further, the hum returned, louder this time. It wasn't mechanical, nor did it seem natural. It was rhythmic, almost like a pulse. Meredith's hands tightened on the controls as an inexplicable dread settled over her. And then, faint but undeniable, they heard it. A whisper. The whisper was fleeting, like a breath caught between words. It was too faint to decipher, but it was there. Meredith froze, her eyes darting to her crew. Kira had gone rigid, her headset pulled tightly against her ears. "Did anyone else hear that?" she whispered. "Hear what?" Malik asked. His voice calm but his brow furrowed. "Voices," Kira said, her eyes wide. "It's like someone's talking, but I can't make out the words." "Radio interference," Jackson said quickly. "It's nothing." Meredith wasn't convinced. The whispering wasn't coming through the radio. It seemed to emanate from the water itself, vibrating through the hull like a ghostly lament. She forced herself to focus, pushing aside the growing unease. As the submarine descended deeper, the whispers grew more distinct. At first, they were indistinct murmurs, but soon, fragments of words emerged, carried on a current of despair. Each crew member heard something different, yet all felt the same chill crawl up their spines. Elias's voice broke the silence. "It's impossible," he muttered, almost to himself. "What is?" Meredith demanded. "Sound doesn't travel like this at these depths. There's no source. It's as if the water itself is speaking." "That's absurd," Jackson snapped, though his hands trembled as he adjusted the controls. But the voices grew louder, more insistent. Meredith's heart pounded as a voice she recognized whispered her name. It was faint, yet unmistakable, her mother's voice, soft and trembling, calling out to her from the depths. "This is impossible," she whispered, gripping the console to steady herself. "What did you hear?" Elias asked, his eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and fascination. Meredith hesitated. "Nothing. Let's keep moving." But the atmosphere in the submarine had shifted. The crew avoided each other's eyes, each lost in their own torment. Kira's hands shook as she adjusted her headset, muttering under her breath. Malik sat rigid, his expression unreadable, but his knuckles were white as he gripped the edge of his seat. The whispers weren't just voices. They were memories, secrets, regrets, a cacophony of guilt and shame that gnawed at the edges of their sanity. Meredith struggled to maintain her composure, but the whispers were relentless, burrowing into her mind like parasites. And then, the lights flickered. The flickering lights plunged the submarine into intermittent darkness, each second of blackness stretching into eternity. Meredith's breath hitched as she tightened her grip on the controls. "Status report," she barked. "Powers fluctuating," Jackson replied, his voice strained. "I'm trying to stabilize it." "Try harder," Meredith snapped. But even as she spoke, the whispers grew louder, filling the cabin with an otherworldly resonance. They were no longer just faint murmurs. They were cries, screams, accusations. "Why did you leave me?" a voice hissed in Meredith's ear. She whipped around, but no one was there. Her hands trembled as she returned her focus to the controls, her mind racing. "We need to surface," Kira said, her voice trembling. "This isn't natural. We have to get out of here." "We're not leaving," Elias interjected, his eyes wild. "Do you realize what we've discovered? This is history. This is madness," Malik interrupted, his deep voice cutting through the chaos. "Whatever this is, it's not worth our lives." But before Meredith could respond, the submarine shuddered violently. A deep, guttural sound reverberated through the vessel, more felt than heard. It was as if the trench itself was alive, its heartbeat synchronized with the whispers. "What the hell was that?" Jackson yelled, frantically scanning the monitors. "Something's out there," Elias whispered, his face pressed against the viewport. His eyes widened in terror. "It's watching us." Meredith followed his gaze, but all she saw was darkness. Yet she felt it too, a presence, vast and unfathomable, staring back at them from the abyss. The whispers coalesced into a single voice, deep and resonant, filling the cabin with its terrible weight. "You should not have come." The voice echoed in their minds, each word heavy with malice. The crew was paralyzed, their breaths shallow, their eyes darting around the cabin as if the walls themselves might close in on them. "We have to leave," Meredith said, her voice barely above a whisper. But even as she spoke, she knew it was too late. The submarine felt like a coffin, its walls closing in as the whispers reached a deafening crescendo. Kira began to sob, clutching her headset as if to block out the voices. "Make it stop," she cried. "Please, make it stop." Elias was muttering to himself, his hands trembling as he clutched his notebook. "This is it," he said. "The abyss speaks. It's alive. It knows us." "Shut up," Malik roared, slamming his fist against the console. "We're getting out of here. Now." But the submarine wouldn't respond. The controls were dead, the lights flickering sporadically. Meredith's mind raced as she tried to think of a solution, but the whispers were relentless, tearing through her thoughts like claws. "You left me to die," the voice accused, and Meredith's vision blurred as memories she'd long buried resurfaced. Her mother's frail body, her whispered pleas for help, and the guilt that had haunted Meredith ever since. The others were trapped in their own torment. Kira's sobs turned to screams, her headset discarded as she clawed at her ears. Elias stared blankly at the viewport, his lips moving silently as if in prayer. Malik's stoicism cracked, his face contorted in anguish as he whispered a name. And then, the darkness outside the submarine shifted. The trench seemed to come alive, its walls pulsating with an unnatural light. Shapes moved within the darkness, vast and unknowable, their forms defying comprehension. Meredith felt her mind teeter on the edge of madness as the whispers merged into a single, deafening roar. "You cannot escape," the voice intoned, resonating through the submarine. "You belong to the abyss." The crew was spiraling into chaos. Kira collapsed to the floor, her screams subsiding into hollow sobs. Elias clutched his head, rocking back and forth as he whispered incoherently. Malik's hands trembled as he gripped a wrench, his eyes darting around the cabin as if searching for an enemy he couldn't see. Meredith fought to stay in control, her mind a storm of fear and guilt. She forced herself to focus, to push past the voices and the memories. "We're not going to die here," she said, her voice firm despite the terror clawing at her insides. "We're going to fight." But even as she spoke, the abyss reached out. Tendrils of darkness seeped into the submarine, twisting and coiling like living shadows. Meredith's breath caught as one of the tendrils brushed her arm, its touch cold and searing all at once. "Captain," Elias said, his voice hollow. "It's not just the abyss. It's us. We're the abyss." Meredith didn't have time to respond. The submarine shuddered violently, the tendrils wrapping around it like a predator claiming its prey. The lights flickered one last time before plunging them into darkness. And then, silence. The whispers stopped, leaving an emptiness that was almost worse. Meredith's breath came in ragged gasps as she groped for the controls, her fingers trembling. But the submarine was unresponsive, its systems dead. They were alone in the abyss, swallowed by the darkness. The last thing Meredith heard before the void consumed her was the voice, calm and final. "You were always ours."